Okay, take just a second and think back. Have you ever walked into a completely unfamiliar space, and yet inexplicably you felt entirely comfortable? I'm talking about maybe a tiny, dimly lit cafe tucked away on some side street, or an old, dusty bookstore with those creaky wooden floors, or even just a quiet hotel room after a really long day of traveling. You don't know the layout, you definitely don't own the furniture, and yet something about the very atmosphere of the room just feels incredibly right. It's a pretty wild phenomenon, isn't it? Why do some spaces instantly calm our nervous systems, literally dropping our heart rate and making us want to hang around, while others almost immediately put us on edge and make us want to sprint for the exit? We've absolutely all experienced both. And the secret to this invisible, almost magnetic pull? Well, it isn't just about having good taste or a massive architecture budget. The answer is actually hiding in the invisible psychology of space. Normally, when we think of a room or when we picture a home, we tend to reduce it to its absolute most basic physical properties. Just four walls, a roof, a floor, maybe the furniture we cram inside it. We essentially treat a home like a giant storage container where we live. But honestly, that traditional, purely physical definition, it completely misses the point of the human experience. Because here is the absolute crucial point to remember. We do not connect with walls. We connect with feelings. Humans don't form deep emotional bonds with drywall or concrete. We connect because the spaces we inhabit are actively triggering a physiological and emotional response inside us. A smartly designed room can make us feel incredibly safe, completely relaxed, or even profoundly nostalgic. And the real secret here? These emotions aren't accidental. Not at all. They are meticulously engineered through really intentional design choices that speak directly to our subconscious. So, let's unpack the first major layer of this, the power of memory, and how our environments act as anchors for our emotions. Think about your childhood home for a second, or any place where you felt completely safe growing up. I bet you rarely remember the actual floor plan, right? What you remember is highly sensory. It's a specific smell, like old books or coffee. It's the exact warm angle of sunlight hitting the living room rug at 4 in the afternoon. It's the rough texture of a favorite chair, or maybe the muffled rhythmic sound of rain hitting the roof outside. These tiny, seemingly mundane everyday details, they act as massively powerful emotional anchors. Our brains catalog these sensory inputs, and when we stumble across them again years later in a totally different space, bam, they trigger this instant cascade of nostalgic comfort. Psychologists actually have a formal term for this. It's called place attachment. Basically, it's the deep psychological relationship between people and places, where a totally neutral, empty space becomes intensely meaningful through our connected experiences. It essentially proves that the physical walls of a building aren't creating the memories. We are. We project our inner emotional lives right onto our surroundings, transforming just geography into a personal sanctuary. Okay, moving on to our next layer, why light changes everything and how illumination literally shapes our emotions. You've definitely noticed how completely different a room feels during the golden, soft glow of a sunrise compared to, say, the harsh, buzzing fluorescent lights of an office cubicle or a hospital hallway. Warm lighting naturally triggers feelings of comfort, relaxation, and intimacy. It actually mimics the firelight that our ancestors used to gather around. On the flip side, harsh, cool artificial lighting makes a space feel cold and temporary. It literally signals to our primitive brains that we are in a clinical, transitional space, and we shouldn't stay long. This is exactly why top-tier restaurants and boutique hotels don't just use light to help you read the menu. They meticulously design their lighting to shape exactly how you feel. Now let's dive into the materials we trust and how we subconsciously read our physical surroundings. Wood, stone, soft fabric, cold metal, slick glass. There is a very specific reason why natural materials feel so inherently calming to us. Remember, humans evolved alongside nature for hundreds of thousands of years. So when we encounter a wooden surface, it feels naturally warm and inviting. A heavy stone wall feels grounding, like it's incredibly stable. Soft fabrics give us instant tactile comfort. While metal and glass can look incredibly sleek and modern, they really often lack that instant evolutionary emotional resonance that natural materials just give us for free. And honestly, this is the most fascinating takeaway about all of this. Our brains judge a space before we even touch anything. You don't actually have to run your hand over a wooden table or lean your shoulder against a stone fireplace to feel its effects. This material perception is a rapid, deeply ingrained evolutionary reflex. Your eyes see the texture, and your brain instantly dictates your baseline level of comfort for that entire room, literally within milliseconds. Which brings us perfectly to identity and personal objects, the actual physical evidence of who we are. Ever walked into a flawlessly designed room, maybe an ultra-expensive model home, and despite it being objectively beautiful, it felt completely empty and lifeless? We humans have this innate need to see evidence of identity in the spaces we hang out in. Framed photos, dog-eared books crammed on a shelf, weird, quirky objects collected over a lifetime of travel. These aren't just clutter, they're essential narrative tools. They tell a story. A completely empty minimalist space might look stunning on an architectural mood board, but it doesn't feel alive. Personal artifacts provide the undeniable evidence of human life, and they are absolutely what transforms a house into a home. Next, let's talk about the role of nature and the psychological impact of bringing the outside in. This introduces a really crucial concept in modern psychology and architecture called biophilic design. It's essentially the purposeful integration of plants, abundant natural light, views of the outdoors, and organic materials directly into our spaces. Why go through the effort? Well, just like we evolved to trust natural materials, we have a deep biological need to stay connected to the living, breathing, natural world. Bringing those elements inside literally triggers positive brain responses associated with natural settings. It drops our blood pressure. It reduces stress. Honestly, something as ridiculously simple as placing a small, green potted plant near a sunlit window can profoundly legitimize the calming effect a room has on our anxious minds. So let's contrast that by looking at beauty versus true comfort, or why perfectly good spaces can sometimes feel completely wrong. We really need to address this paradox. Why can we stand in a room, admit that it is absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, and still desperately want to get out of there? It comes down to a stark contrast between two very different ideas. Beauty focuses entirely on appearance, symmetry, current trends, pure visual aesthetics. But comfort focuses on the human experience. It's about how the space holds you, how it supports you, and how it makes you feel. A room can be stunning, but if it ignores the human experience, it completely fails as a living space. Truly phenomenal design always prioritizes how people actually experience the room over how good it looks on a screen. Let's quickly walk through how that illusion of comfort shatters when beauty ignores our needs. It usually starts with poor, glaring lighting. Then you sit down on a sofa that looks like a beautiful modern art sculpture, but actually feels like a medieval torture device. Throw in some confusing, awkward floor layouts, a bunch of stressful clutter, and top it all off with zero personal connection. When those elements compound, that space instantly morphs into a place we want to escape from rather than retreat to. So ultimately, the whole explainer really boils down to this realization. We don't just occupy spaces, we emotionally experience them. The absolute most memorable, incredible spaces you will ever step foot in aren't necessarily the biggest. They usually aren't the most expensive, and they definitely aren't the most flawless. They are simply the ones that make us feel something deeply positive. They are spaces engineered with human emotion in mind. I really want to leave you with this one thought. A room becomes a home when it becomes part of our story. It's never just about the walls. It's about the memories we anchor to them, the light that warms them, the materials that ground us, and the objects that prove we were actually there. So, I've got a challenge for you. Look around the room you are in right now, or just picture your favorite place in the whole world. Ask yourself, which space makes you feel like you truly belong? And what invisible forces of light, memory, and nature are at play there? Next time you walk into a room and instantly feel a sense of peace, you'll know exactly why. Thanks for joining me on this explainer diving into the psychology of spaces.